Marc Maron, good morning, sir.
How you doing, man?
Very good. Thank you for taking the time and calling in today, and congrats on the upcoming release of Season 3 of Maron.
Thanks a lot, man. I'm very excited about it.
So now I've always wondered, Marc, with shows like yours, how close is it to real life for you?
Well, you know, it's some of the stuff is based on my real life, obviously, but it's 22 minutes of television, and it's a scripted show, so it's as real a life as that enables me to do, but there's definitely emotionally components and actual bits and pieces of my life in that show.
Are there times where it gets weird? I mean, obviously it hits close to home because it's about you, but you know, where you're going, wow, I'm actually putting this out on television. Okay.
Yeah, it can get a little dicey, but that's sort of the world I live in. You know, like my father was a little bit offended by the way that I characterized him. Judd Hirsch played my father, and I thought arguably he was a better father than my father. And Sally Kellerman played my mother, though my mother loved the way Sally Kellerman played her. So the character of my brother is a little different. But yeah, sometimes people get a little sensitive about how they're portrayed. But generally, I think it makes, because I based it on my real life, the emotional component of the comedy is very deep and very real.
One of my favorite scenes, and I think it was the first episode, you're in the vet's office, and you're saying, you know, things in my life are going really well. And then I have this voice that's saying, you're going to mess it up, but I wish it was louder than the other voice that says, let's mess it up.
Right. Well, I got to be honest with you. In this season, that loud voice kind of gets his way a little bit towards the end. And, it definitely gets a little gnarly this season. But I think the stories are great, and the guest stars are great, and the comedy is really good. And I don't take that stuff too lightly. I think each season has gotten better as it's gone on. And if people want to catch up on the first two, they can go to Netflix and get ready for tonight. So
with your podcast, you get to talk to pretty much anybody and everyone that you want. And, you know, when I've had comedians on my shows before, I like to pick their brains. Who are they listening to? What do they listen to? And your name comes up all the time. So it's cool for me to be talking to you. For these people that I have admiration for, you have their admiration. Who has your admiration that's been a guest?
What, you mean comics?
Comics, or just anybody that you've had on the podcast that you've kind of just taken a step back and gone, this is happening right now. This is cool.
Oh, yeah, man. That happens to me all the time. It's pretty crazy. I had the opportunity to talk to Mick Jagger and Keith Richards for 10 minutes each a couple weeks ago.
No kidding.
I never thought that would happen in my life. I never thought that I'd have that opportunity. And then initially I was sort of cocky about it. I was like, hey, I do an hour show. If they want to talk an hour, then I'll talk to them. And I told my producer, and he's like, what are you, crazy? It's Mick Jagger and Keith Richards. What are you doing? So that was pretty damn exciting. So what I did was I had my buddy Dee Delray over. He's a comic, and we just sat there and waited for Mick Jagger to call, talking about how much we loved the Stones. It was pretty funny. And talking to Keith Richards was sort of a highlight. But I talked to Paul Thomas Anderson. I talked to Henry Winkler recently. It was really nice. That was kind of great. I talked to Richard Linklater, the director. I talked to Richard Lewis recently for a second time. I have a lot of respect for almost everybody I talked to. I talked to old Nick Tosches, the writer in New York. Robert Williams, the painter. I don't generally talk to people I don't want to talk to.
I mean, most of these guests you have a working relationship with, but in prepping for an episode or a chat, because it's not really an interview, how do you prepare yourself for it? Do you go in with an agenda, or just what happens?
Well, I like to get a sense of who I'm talking to and really what I'm looking for, and what I think is interesting about them from the sort of their life. And I don't really plan a bunch of questions. I load my mind up with things about them and things I'm curious about, and then I just sort of start the conversation as organically as possible, maybe about nothing in particular, and just let it flow from there, knowing that there are some things I want to get to, and hopefully they happen organically.
And now in terms of moving forward, who's on your wish list? Who are some people that you're like, man, someday they're going to be sitting across from me and we're going to be doing the podcast?
Well, I think I'd like to talk to Albert Brooks and Lily Tomlin, like in terms of people that I'd really like to talk to from the generation or two behind me. I've never talked to Steve Carell or some of those. Who else is in that crew? Look, the president, maybe, he should make some time for me.
I think he can clear his schedule, right?
Yeah, let's see if I'll get in touch with his people today.
Well, very cool, man. Well, again, season 3 of Maron, it's out tonight on IFC. And like you said, if people want to catch up on it, they can go to Netflix and catch seasons 1 and 2, and they can get the podcast. What's the website again for the podcast, Mark?
WTFpod.com.
Marc Maron, thank you so much, sir, for taking the time and calling in today. I appreciate it.
Great talking to you. See you soon.
Take care.
Bye.